What's up? This is Adam here, aka Cena Guy. I think people weren't expecting this, but it's completely out of the blue. I'm doing my first review on Nightmare on Elm Street, which came out in the 1980s. I made that video about what do you people want to see on this channel. What would you like to see? And one of the most biggest votes that they got was, we want to see more fucking movie reviews on horror films. Some people out there are a big fan of my movie reviews, my rants and all that other kind of shit. But if I thought to myself, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to start doing movie reviews again on horror, what better way to do it on a franchise that I absolutely love? Yeah, as you can tell by the hat, the tattoo, Nightmare on Elm Street. Fucking love the franchise. The only films I didn't particularly like was Part 5 and the remake. The remake, as you all know, was a fucking abomination, and it's some balls. Where Jackie Earle Haley took over the role as Freddy Krueger, replacing Robert Englund. What a fucking abysmal movie. Where they had no creativity with the dream sequences or anything, but that's that movie for another day. This is about this movie that came out in the 1980s, and it's a masterpiece. Fucking love the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I like it for the same reason why everyone else does, everybody. It's creative, the characters are likeable, every actor in their role did a fantastic job. Like I say, you've got Robert Englund, legendary actor. I've met the guy 3 times now, and he's just a pleasure to meet. Not only is he an outstanding actor, but he's also a very friendly guy. Loves meeting the fans. He's always got a great story to tell, particularly a Nightmare on Elm Street story. Whether we be talking about how the movies were made, things that he did on set. Such a nice guy. I've met Heather Langenkamp, who plays Nancy. Again, very sweet lady. Got a story to tell every time she meets the fans. Very patient, takes her time. I've met Amanda Wyatt, who plays Tina. I've met John Saxon, who plays Nancy's father. And I've also met what's his name? Mark Patton, who played Jesse in Part 2. You know what I mean? So there's loads of memorable cast members that I've met, and I'm glad I have them as part of my collection. But the first movie, I'd have to say, it's possibly my favourite one in the franchise. Now, it's hard for me to pick a particular favourite because, like I said, I thought Part 2 was really underrated, and I think it got hated for all the wrong reasons. Part 3 I have a lot of fun with. Now, Part 4, I remember back in the day I did not like that film, but when I watched it continuously over and over again, my dislike for it went straight out the window, and I started becoming a fan of the movie. Number 5 was a major letdown for me. I did not like number 5, and I'll get to that in a different review. We also had Freddy's Dead, which is silly, but I had a lot of fun with it. And Wes Craven's New Nightmare, pretty original, but a good film, and that's also Robert Englund's favourite, by the way. And then we get to the fucking crossover, Freddy vs. Jason, which I also enjoy. But the first movie, this was the movie where, in my opinion, it was Freddy Krueger's scariest time. As the films go on, he seems to get more goofier, a lot more jokes are thrown in. Where in this movie, he had like more of that serious side. He was like the scariest side. I mean, what more can you say about Freddy Krueger, a child killer? Yet they make dolls of this guy. They bring him out on the Super Nintendo. But again, everything was outstanding about the character. I love the Freddy Krueger character. I mean, I'm not praising the child killer, I'm praising the pop culture side of things, you know what I mean? About this guy named Fred Krueger. He was a child killer, He gets arrested, goes in court. They fuck up in court, he gets released. And all the parents of the children that he killed all become vigilantes, and they burn the boiler room down where Freddy Krueger worked. And he gets burned to death. And he comes back in the child's dreams to get revenge, and when he kills you in the dream world, you die for real. Great idea. And what I love so much about that aspect is if you make a dream in a movie, you can do anything, and they prove that in that great scene in the school, you know, when Nancy falls asleep and Tina's there in the bloody body bag. 1 minute she's in the classroom, she's then in the hallway, and then she goes down some stairs which leads to the boiler room. Now, that would happen in a dream. So when you're making a movie about nightmares and dreams, you can basically make nearly pretty much anything. You know, so, and they do that a couple of times in this movie. Again, the film opens up with Amanda Wyss's character, Tina, being chased by Freddy through the boiler room, and you get the hint that she's going to be the main character, but that wasn't the case. She wakes up terrified, you know, grabbing onto the crucifix, and she meets Nancy at school the following day, her best friend, and says that she's been having all these nightmares. We later learn that Nancy, who's going to be in the leading role, says that she's been having nightmares too. Basically, all these different kids are having nightmares about the same guy, Fred Krueger. And during a sleepover, they introduce Glenn, who's played by Johnny Depp, you know, making his movie debut. We meet Ron, who's the boyfriend of Tina, although they've been having problems lately, but they soon hook up. And after a night of sex, Tina falls asleep, and we get a full glimpse of what she's been having a nightmare about, Freddy Krueger. You know what I mean? And it was shot in the alleyway, which I believe took place in the middle of the night, according to a few interviews I saw with Robert Englund. And loved the one-liners. This is God. You know, Tina, watch this. And slices up his own fingers. Love that scene where he's killing Tina, and like I said, it was more harder back these days before it was all computer tricks, but now the room is actually rotating, you know, where Tina is like being murdered by Freddy Krueger. She falls on the bed like a fish, and she like slops everywhere, the blood goes everywhere. Everyone thinks that Rod did it, and he gets arrested. But then Nancy becomes a believer that it's Freddy Krueger, because when she sees Glenn in jail, Rod in jail, and she talks about the dreams, it reminds her of her dreams. And then she starts to get hints as the movie goes along that this guy, Freddy Krueger, is actually getting into all these kids' dreams and fucking killing them off one by one, you know. I mean, there's like the hanging scene where Rod gets hanged and she sees Freddy Krueger do it while she's dreaming. Again, scene for scene, it was so interesting. I like the character development. I loved the actors. I think the actors did a great role in this movie. Everything in this movie was really put together, and this movie, it was scary. It was, again, it came out at the right time in the 80s, which I think the horror movies were at its best. You know, everyone did a great job acting-wise. Robert Englund put his heart and soul into the Freddy Krueger character. And I've got to honestly think, I think they had no idea that this movie was going to be such a big hit. They had no idea that Freddy Krueger was going to become this massive icon in horror. You know, Robert Englund even said that he never expected in a million years that he'd become this big iconic character that people are going to be beloved by everybody all over the world. I mean, I'm one of them. You know what I mean? Look, I've got Freddy on my arm. You know, I've met several of the cast members. I've got loads of memorabilia, action figures, video games, all because of Freddy Krueger. And like I said, nobody knew that this was really going to happen. You know, Robert Englund never expected it in a million years, and neither did anybody else. They didn't know that this film was going to be something big, you know. So big that he made this whole big, incredible franchise, you know. I mean, throughout the movie, it's Nancy very determined to stop Freddy Krueger. I mean, like I said, she's got a father who's a sheriff. She's got a mum who's an alcoholic, you know. She learns who Freddy Krueger is from the mother later in the film, where she says that she was one of the parents who tortured Freddy Krueger, and she kept his finger knife gloves in the boiler, you know, because that's Freddy Krueger's iconic murder weapon, the glove, which he made himself with the blades. You know, it's not a simple weapon like Jason Voorhees, where he uses a big machete, or Michael Myers with a fucking kitchen knife, you know. You got Freddy Krueger with his iconic murder weapon, you know, the glove thing, like, you know. So yeah, this movie, it was scary, it was entertaining. I love Freddy's serious side in this. You know, I like Nancy's determination towards the end, you know, like where you're really rooting for her. You know, where she's setting up the traps to try and planning to bring Freddy Krueger into the real world so she can stop him. You know, unfortunately for Glenn, Johnny Depp's character, he gets killed by falling asleep and all the blood like comes out the bed like a fucking fountain. You know, although Johnny Depp did make an appearance, I believe. What was it? The Final Nightmare, where he's on TV. This is your brain on drugs. I believe that was him. You know, so great horror movie. I mean, if you're a fan of any horror movie, how can you not be a fan of the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie? What more could be said about its masterpiece? It had the makings of every horror, and like I say, great idea, great aspect about the fact that they're going to use dreams and nightmares in a horror movie. You know, you're going to see something great. I mean, okay, if you want me to talk about a part which I did not quite like about this movie, there's always like a bit of a dab of something that you wish that wasn't in the movie, or there's like a few bits and pieces that you wish that could have been altered. I've only got one problem: the ending. Alright, Freddy Krueger's been defeated. Nancy conquered the nightmares. She gets in the car with her friends who were supposed to be dead. The roof of the car goes up, which is the same design of Freddy Krueger's jumper. She drives off. Freddy Krueger pulls Nancy's mother through the window like a fucking blow-up doll. And the ghosts of the children going, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. And you have to admit, you can't help but laugh at that scene where Nancy's mother's been pulled through that little tiny window on the door. And you think, really? I mean, if you look at some of these other endings that they made for this movie, I prefer the ending where Nancy's driving off happily in the car and he's just cutting to the ghost kids with the skipping rope going, 1, 2, Freddy's. They should have used that ending. I really wish they could have brought out another version of this movie with that ending. You know. Because when you look back at this movie and you see that scene where she's been pulled through the fucking window like a fucking blow-up doll, you're like, what the fuck is that? Was that really necessary? You know what I mean? But it's indicated to the viewers that Freddy Krueger's still alive, you know. But that ending with the girls can be so much fucking better with the skipping rope and all that, you know. At least in my fucking general opinion. Nevertheless, kudos to the film, kudos to the blood, the storytelling. Again, the actors were likeable. You know, there was no annoying characters. Every actor, Heather Langenkamp, you know, Robert Englund, John Saxon, Johnny Depp, all did a fantastic job of their characters acting wise. They were likeable characters. You'd like to get behind the characters. You know, I love the music in this movie. I mean, I like that scene, you know, where Nancy's in the boardroom trying to run from Freddy, and you got that, you know, music in the background where Freddy's like taunting her, you know, rubbing his fingernails across the pipes, making that squealing noise out. You know, fucking love that. I love the creativity of it. I love the look of Freddy, you know, with the burnt face, the dirty red and green sweater, and, you know, so no complaints from me of the character designs or anything like that. Everyone did a great job like that. But again, this movie became a big hit, hence why it spawned so many sequels. I mean, the first one's the serious one. After part 3, they started to get a bit more goofy and more comedy was thrown in. But the Freddy Krueger character, there's also that talk about, was he a child molester? I don't think it's something we need to know, but you get the hint that he was a child molester, like in Freddy vs. Jason in 2 scenes. The scene where he's licking the picture, and there's a scene, that sequence of that little girl where she says, Freddy likes girls, especially little girls, you know, and it kind of got you thinking, like, was Freddy really a child molester, you know? But I like to think of him more as a child killer, you know what I mean? I wouldn't say it's an important aspect to know, basically, about the character. I suppose what makes Freddy Krueger really scary is not really knowing much about him, but as the films go on, we learn he had a family, you know, he got bullied at school, he's the son of 1,000 maniacs, he was abused in a foster family, you know, he kills his wife in the garden with his little daughter watching, and those are different films for a different day. But the first movie, we hardly know anything about Freddy Krueger, but then he was a child killer. He's come back in the dreams, he's gaining powers, you know. Nancy tries to stop him. You know, nobody believes that Is Freddy Krueger doing all these killings over than the mother, although she knows that she killed him. She's the only one that's kind of hinting that that Freddy Krueger's got any sort of involvement. You know what I mean? But kudos to this movie. You know, I could go on forever talking about what a smashing job they've done in terms of everything, the music, the atmosphere, the dream sequences, the music. I mean, the creativity between the dreams. I mean, there were scary parts, like the scene where Tina's like in the bloody body bag, and then a hand flops over like a fish as she's being dragged through the hallway. Tina, no running in the hallway. You know, Freddy's one-liners. You know, but Freddy Krueger did a good job of being scary in this movie. It was more of like Freddy's serious side before he like became like a bit of a comedian. You know, I would say the first one's possibly, no doubt, the best one in the franchise. I mean, that's excluding part 3 if you like the fun side of things. Like, it's not like the Dream Warriors, it's not like the Dream Master, it's not like Freddy's Dead. You know, we have like more fun aspects. This was the serious movie, and in my opinion, this was the scariest one. And it's nice to see a serious side of Freddy. You know what I mean? I like the serious side of Freddy. I've pretty much covered everything other than I just don't like the ending. I wish I had that other ending, you know, with the girls with the skipping rope. You know, the blow up doll scene being pulled through the window was fucking hilarious. I mean, when you rewatch it, you're like, fuck. You know, we could have had some better endings than that. Okay. So yeah, everybody, I really enjoyed doing this review. You know, I have no reason whatsoever not to give this movie 5 stars because, like I say, it's a classic. It will go down in history as one of the iconic horror films ever made of the 80s. It was the birth of Freddy. Freddy went on to become this big major star. You know, Robert Englund was perfect casting, although he wasn't the original choice to play Freddy Krueger. I found that out later on in the documentary. But again, you can't go wrong with this movie. You know, it's one of those movies that you can honestly watch as a classic. And like if you're depressed or having a bad day, and you want a movie to cheer you up, you know, you can just say, oh, we'll watch Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, it's good for a scare. It's a popcorn movie, basically. But I've really enjoyed this, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed this review. So please leave me a comment, and hopefully we'll get to part 2 real soon. But you wanted me to do more movie reviews, and that's exactly what I've done, and I thought to myself, what better way to kick this off all over again than doing it on one of my favourite horror franchises. So, and I speak that on behalf of everybody else. So, thanks for watching this, everybody. Peace out, and don't die sleeping.